Video game demos. If you were someone who had parents that wouldn't buy you the games you wanted, you probably remember playing one back in the old days, and we always came across them in the most bizarre ways. From Pizza Hut CDs that featured demos for games like Final Fantasy VIII and Crash Team Racing, to DVD special features like the Star Wars Battlefront 2 demo and Revenge of the Sith, finding those demos were always the most random discoveries from our past, and they were always the most welcome. But fast forward to today, the video game demo era has seemingly been on a downward trend. So what happened to video game demos? What caused a lot of AAA companies to abandon them? To answer this question, we must first ask another. Why did developers start making demos in the first place? We're gonna go back, like way back. Back in the 80s and 90s, video game marketing was a whole different breed. The age of internet marketing was still decades out, and computers weren't as common as they are now. But game studios wanted to get their products out there. So small game developers like id Software at the time, yep, this is where they started out, used what were called wares, or shareware. Yeah, before demo discs, there was shareware. The concept of shareware is pretty straightforward. Developers would upload a free, fully playable level from their game onto a bulletin board system or an FTP site. Essentially, these were servers that allowed users to connect and have access to download a number of files and send emails. This was basically the prehistoric version of the internet at the time. Once these users downloaded the level and played it, a text screen would pop up at the end and would usually say, hey, if you like the level and want to play more, call this number to order the full game. It was only as effective as the time period would allow it to be. Not everyone had computers. So as the years passed and technology grew more advanced, so did the method of video game marketing. Gaming at home really started to blow up with consoles like Atari and the Nintendo 64, but producing demos for these consoles were found to be extremely difficult for the studios. Game cartridges were expensive and took too much time to produce. But when the PlayStation came out back in the year 1995, that all changed. Consoles like the PlayStation and a couple of years later, the PlayStation 2 and Xbox all started to use CDs. They were cheaper and easier to produce on a mass scale. As the consoles evolved, so did the method of marketing for games. The studios that used shareware to market now took those same levels and threw them onto CDs for cheap. This created a new era for video games. Not only did video game developers use commercials and outlets like Toonami to market their games, they used another form of media that was pretty huge back in the day, magazines. For those that remember, video game magazines were a pretty big thing back in the day. They often featured demo discs on the covers to get people to buy them. It was a win-win for both game studios and magazines. Magazines weren't the only way you could get your hands on some demos though. Pizza Hut had these insane promo discs that featured a number of demos that you could play, like Metal Gear Solid 2, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and Gran Turismo. If you want to know more about these demo discs, check out this video from Nakey Jakey. It's pretty great. Many movies coming out on DVD featured demos to games related to the movie and their special features. This to me was the golden era of physical media for movies. Back when special features actually meant something. I remember repeatedly playing the Star Wars Battlefront 2 demo and the copy of Revenge of the Sith that I had, as well as a demo for the 2003 Hulk movie video game. You know, back when I played it, I used to think it was one of the coolest things I ever played, but I look at it now and Jesus. In some cases, you would even find a demo within the extras of a video game. In the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition that was released on the GameCube, you had the ability to play Wind Waker for 20 minutes. There were 3 map areas you could explore within that time. Retail stores like Walmart, Target, GameStop, and even Hollywood Video all had these gaming stations where you could play a set of demos as well. I remember hanging out with my brother for what felt like hours at these things, while we waited for our parents to shop around. We'd play games like Super Smash Bros. And Mario Kart. When the PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii came out, that was around the time demos really reached their peak. They were more accessible than ever with easy access to downloads through their online stores. I remember scrolling through the lists, trying to find whatever demos I could. Video game demos were huge at this point. They were everywhere. It was the best method gamers had in terms of deciding if they wanted to buy the game or not. So what happened? The answer is, well, they're kind of hard to make. You see, there's a multitude of aspects that needs to be considered when making one. Let's start with one of them. How do you make a video game demo that gives players what they want without giving them what they want? The whole point of a demo is to get players interested in buying the game. If the demo fails to grab their attention with the lack of content, the player won't buy the game. Now let's say it's the opposite. What if the video game demo has an overwhelming amount of content to offer? That'll for sure make the consumer happy. There's nothing better as a player to play a good amount of the game for free. But that can also lead consumers to feel like they don't need to purchase the full game. If the demo is satisfying enough, then it's also considered a failure. I can attest to this. I found this demo for a RTS game called Command & Conquer Tiberium Wars. When I played it, I went through the tutorial level that it had and thought it was pretty fun. After finishing it, I found out that the demo had an online feature to it. If someone else had the demo, I could verse them in a 1v1 arena map. Of course, our choices were limited. We could only play on one map and we were forced to use the same faction. But nonetheless, we were able to play with each other over and over. I told my friends about it and convinced them all to download the demo. They were all fascinated by the fact that we could play with each other online through it. It was unheard of for us. I got about 5 of my friends to download and play it. For hours, we played each other on that single map. We had a lot of fun, but when it came time to ask them if they wanted to buy the full game, I was met with hesitation. One of my friends responded back with a question: why would I buy the game if we could just play each other on the demo? A majority of my friends thought the same, and I couldn't really argue with that. The demo became more than what it was meant to be. It became a free game in its own way, defeating the purpose for consumers to buy the full product. Demos run the risk of overstaying their welcome. So how do you avoid that? There's one demo that comes into my mind, and I'm sure if you've owned an Xbox 362, you're probably thinking it too. The Minecraft Xbox 360 demo. I remember it like it was yesterday. Every single person on my friends list was playing the full game when it had first arrived on the Xbox. I was like 12 years old. I didn't have no money. I had to wait weeks before I could get it for my birthday. So the only way I could play the game everyone was obsessed over was with the demo. And you know what? It was probably the greatest demo I ever played. And I played a lot of them. Nostalgia aside, the Minecraft 360 demo had a feature not a lot of other demos bothered to do. It had a timer. It put players into a world and gave them 5 in-game days to do whatever they wanted. They could explore the structures that were created by the developers, learn the redstone mechanics, and do what the game is most known for: explore and build whatever you want in 5 days. After those 5 days, the game gives you an option to go back to the main menu, or to go to the online store to buy it and continue playing. If you go to the main menu, you lose all the progress you had and have to restart. This is what makes it so perfect. Let's say you were in the middle of building your house, or you had just finished it. If you don't buy the game, you lose all the work you put in. It was such a painful feeling. It made me want to buy the full game more and more. And my God, those weeks leading up to my birthday were the longest I ever lived. The Minecraft demo wasn't the only one that had the timer feature. Tony Hawk Pro Skater had the same kind of demo where you had 2 minutes to do whatever tricks you wanted in a small warehouse. Ah yes, the famous warehouse. I absolutely sucked at this demo when I played it. I was too young and all I remember ever doing was button mashing to see whatever I could do. But I still had fun going up those ramps and riding on the rails. The game studio Telltale also had an interesting approach to their demos where they would make each first chapter to their story games free for everyone. Typically, at the end of these chapters, they would all end in big cliffhangers, tempting players to buy the next chapter or season pass. These to me are perfect examples of what a video game demo should strive to be. Give the players a feel for the game with all the mechanics you have to offer without letting them think they're experiencing the full game. But these demos were rare cases. Not every demo had the ability to include a timer feature. Most developers just opted to cut portions of their game that best represented the full product. But even this process took a lot of effort and money to accomplish. And that's where AAA developers started to view the demo experience differently. With the rise of online video game marketing, developers realized that it wasn't necessary to create the demo anymore. With yearly game showcases like Summer Game Fest, they were able to release pre-recorded footage of their game to the public. Footage that showed the game in its best state while also giving players an idea of what it is, much like a demo. It didn't cost developers nearly as much as a demo would have. It made financial sense. Not only that, but developers discovered a new way to market their games, one that was completely free and gave them great exposure: YouTubers. Around 2013, gaming on YouTube became the most watched niche on the platform. For several years too. Let's Players like PewDiePie, Markiplier, and Jacksepticeye uploaded long gameplay videos of them playing a wide range of games. Fans of them would watch, and if they thought the game was cool, they'd buy and play it for themselves. They didn't have to play a demo to see if they liked it. If they saw someone else having fun, that was enough for them. And it might surprise you, but through extensive market research, demos were proven to actually harm game sales. I mean, just look at what happened when I tried to get some of my friends to buy Command & Conquer. They felt satisfied with the demo, so what more could they possibly get out of buying the full game? Jesse Schell, CEO of Schell Games, made an interesting speech at the 2013 DICE Summit, where he explained the cumulative Xbox 360 sales.
A huge amount of the way we spend our money. So here's some data from EDAR about Xbox 360 sales. So here's these 4 lines of 4 different types of games. What are these lines? Well, let's look at the bottom one. The bottom one is games with no demo or trailer. They have the lowest cumulative sales. After that, games with a demo have more sales. Makes sense. Games with a demo have more sales than games with no demo. But what's the next line? This is things with a demo and a trailer. Sure, makes sense. I get it. A demo and a trailer is going to move more units. What the hell is that top line? That's games with just a trailer. Wait, you mean we spent all this money making a demo and getting it out there and it cut our sales in half? Yes, that's exactly what happened to you, because when you put the demo out, people had seen the trailer and they're like, that's cool, and they made a plan. I gotta try that game. And then when they played the demo, all right, I've tried that game. That was okay. All right, I'm done. But the things with no demo, you've got to buy it if you want to try it.
From a consumer's perspective, it makes a bit of sense. If the demo sucks, why would I want to buy the game? That's what made demos so helpful for the consumers. It helped us figure out if it was worth buying. But say we're the ones that made the game, and we want the sales to be good. If the demo isn't a good representation of the game, but you know the game you made is good, the demo could kill potential sales. Not every game is capable of even having one. For those that aren't, if a demo is expected, you'd have to make one from scratch. And that's where the costs increase. Costs that go to something that isn't profitable. And if we look at today, the idea of making a demo for an upcoming game makes very little sense. If you buy a game on Steam, you have up to 2 hours of playtime to figure out if you want to continue playing it. If you don't, you can get a full refund. The 2-hour return model had basically replaced the need for a demo. It allows consumers to get a feel for the game without feeling like they lost out on their money. I mean, just look at the day before. Everyone's reviews for that game all had less than 2 hours of playtime, meaning that they most likely refunded their game before the 2 hours. There's a lot more game reviewers on YouTube, Let's Players, Twitch streamers, you name it. The thought of, let me get my hands on the demo before I buy it, isn't commonplace anymore. AAA companies in America have mostly abandoned the demo tactic. But when we look at Japan, we'll find that many still use it. Square Enix, Capcom, and Nintendo are all game developers that still meddle with the idea of a demo. In 2023, Nintendo released the demo for Pikmin 4, a game that was personally Game of the Year for me. They also put one out for Metroid Dread, and many more. This is purely speculation, but it seems as though Nintendo only uses demos to help increase sales for their less popular IPs. Now, whether or not it's successful is something we won't learn until they release their numbers. But if we look back at Wind Waker, those who lived through the release of the game remember that it wasn't received well initially. The art style was drastically different compared to the previous styles, and many fans weren't on board with it. The sales were disappointing at first, but over time, they reached an impressive number. The game was released in December of 2002, and the collector's edition that featured the demo came out in November of 2003, almost a year apart from one another. Could the increase of sales have been due to the release of the demo? It's quite the gap in time. But for Nintendo to strategically place a demo for a recent release in a collector's item that every fan would want is no coincidence. Besides these companies though, there aren't really any developers making demos anymore. Well, that's a lie. What if I were to tell you that a small fire has sparked? One that's flown under the radar by so many. The Steam Next Festivals. A week-long festival that happens 3 times a year where developers offer demos for their upcoming games to players. You won't find AAA titles here. Instead, you'll find games that are made by a few people and in some cases, solo creators. Ones with unique game mechanics and voices that want to be heard. Stories that have never been told and are rich with detail. Look, I get that some people would rather prefer demos from bigger named companies. But how do you think those big companies even started? They grew popular due to the few people that tried out their shareware. We wouldn't have companies like Epic Games and id Software if it weren't for those few people that gave their demos a chance. There are hundreds of passionate developers dying to be given a chance, for someone to download their demo and let their voice be heard.
I was so full of ideas, but I didn't have a lot of tools to work with out there, so I figured I could just kind of like act out the gameplay. That's how Yarny came to be. I actually brought him with me. Hi! No. I created this little doll with some old metal wire that I found and some yarn that I managed to borrow, and then I just I wandered around in the woods. I was putting yarn in different situations and snapping pictures and figuring out fun ways that you could use your yarn. I wanted the whole game to feel just like that too, like it's an exploration.
The next demo festival is in February, so please, be sure to check it out if you can. Besides developers in Japan, the only companies that are willing to produce demos for their games are independent ones. It's going to be a rare sight if publishers like Activision and EA allow demos to be released for their upcoming titles. With how easy it is for them to market their games, I don't believe we'll see demos for their big releases ever again. No more demo discs, no more demos and special features for movies, no more demos and game extras. Financially speaking, there's no gain in it for them. But if anyone were to bring them back, it would be indie developers.